Ethan and Liam were like two different colors of paint that somehow made a beautiful picture together. They shared a small dorm room at their college, a space usually filled with the smell of instant noodles and the sounds of video games. Ethan was the tidy one, always making sure his books were stacked neatly and his clothes put away. He loved to read big, thick fantasy novels and could spend hours drawing detailed maps of make-believe lands. He was a bit quiet at first, but once you got to know him, he had a funny, dry wit that could make anyone chuckle. Liam, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of energy. His side of the room often looked like a laundry basket had exploded, but he always knew exactly where everything was. He loved loud music, playing his guitar, and chatting with anyone who would listen. He was the kind of person who could make friends with a brick wall. Despite their differences, they had a really good thing going. They'd lived together for over a year, and their friendship was strong, built on late-night talks, shared snacks, and countless silly jokes. They often teased each other, but it was always with a warm, friendly spirit. Liam would poke fun at Ethan's serious reading habits, while Ethan would playfully roll his eyes at Liam's endless supply of wild stories. It was a comfortable rhythm, a safe and happy friendship that had become a big part of their college lives. One Tuesday night, long after the campus library had closed and most dorm lights were out, a sudden craving hit Ethan. It was for a very specific type of cheesy cracker, the kind only found in the communal kitchen down the hall. Liam was already asleep, a soft snore coming from his bed. Ethan tiptoed out, careful not to wake him. The hallway was quiet, lit only by emergency lights, giving everything a faint, eerie glow. As he reached the kitchen, he pushed open the door slowly. The small room was empty, thankfully. He made his way to the cupboard, where he knew the good snacks were sometimes hidden. Just as his fingers brushed against the familiar red box, a noise behind him made him jump. It was Liam, standing in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" Liam mumbled. Then his eyes fully opened, and he stopped rubbing them. Instead, they grew wide, then crinkled at the corners as a slow smile spread across his face. He wasn't looking at the crackers. He was looking at Ethan. Ethan felt a blush creep up his neck. He had completely forgotten what he was wearing. In his haste to get his midnight snack, he had pulled on his favorite pajamas. They weren't just any pajamas. They were bright yellow, covered in cartoon sheep jumping over fences, complete with little fluffy tails. And on his head, he wore a matching sleeping cap with a pom-pom that bobbed with every tiny movement. It was a gift from his grandma, and he usually only wore them when he was absolutely sure no one would see him. But here was Liam, seeing him in all his sheepy glory. Liam's smile grew wider and wider until he couldn't hold it in anymore. A snort escaped him, then a giggle, which quickly turned into full-blown laughter. He leaned against the doorframe, shaking with mirth. "Ethan," he gasped between laughs, "what in the world are you wearing?" He pointed a finger, still chuckling, at the fluffy sheep on Ethan's pajamas. "Are those sheep and a sleeping cap? You look like you just jumped out of a children's book." Ethan felt his cheeks get even hotter, but he couldn't help but crack a smile. Liam's laughter was so loud and happy, it was contagious. "They're comfortable," Ethan mumbled, trying to sound serious, but a small grin tugged at his lips. He even gave a slight shake of his head, making the pom-pom on his sleeping cap bob up and down. That only made Liam laugh harder, clutching his stomach as if it hurt. "Comfortable," Liam repeated, wiping a tear from his eye. "You look like you're ready for a sheep counting contest. Or maybe a lullaby convention." He took a step into the kitchen, still giggling. "I knew you were a quiet one, but I never guessed you secretly dressed up as a fluffy cloud in your spare time." Ethan rolled his eyes, but his smile was now wide and genuine. All right, laugh it up, funny man," he said, trying to sound annoyed but failing completely. He knew Liam wasn't being mean. This was just how they joked around. It was lighthearted and warm, a familiar dance between them. He even puffed out his chest a little, making the sheep on his pajamas stretch. "These are top-notch sleepwear. Thank you very much. You just don't understand fashion." Ethan decided to lean into the silliness. He puffed out his chest even further, doing a funny little pose like a fashion model on a runway. He then spun around slowly, making the pom-pom on his cap bounce wildly, and the sheep on his pajamas appear to leap. "Behold," he declared in a dramatic voice, "the majestic sleepy sheep ensemble, designed for ultimate comfort and dream-filled nights." Liam howled with laughter, doubling over. He slapped his knee, tears streaming down his face. "Oh my goodness, Ethan, you're killing me," he gasped, barely able to speak. "You really are a sight to behold." Encouraged by Liam's delight, Ethan continued his performance. He started to prance around the small kitchen, doing exaggerated tiptoes and waving his hands in a grand gesture. "Only the finest wool for this dream weaver," he announced, pretending to smooth down his imaginary sheep's fleece. He even let out a soft, playful baa that was more like a squeak, causing Liam to collapse against the counter, completely overcome with laughter. The sound of Liam's joyful laughter filled the quiet kitchen, chasing away the last bits of sleepiness. Ethan felt a warm glow spread through him. Making Liam laugh this hard was one of his favorite things to do. It was a pure, happy sound full of life. He did another silly little dance, ending with a deep bow, his pom-pom nearly touching the floor. Liam finally managed to straighten up, still chuckling, but a different look was starting to enter his eyes. The laughter was fading, leaving behind something softer, something a little bit amazed. Liam slowly stopped laughing, the last chuckles fading in his soft breaths. He watched Ethan, who was still slightly swaying from his dance, the pom-pom on his cap gently bobbing. The bright yellow pajamas, the tiny sheep, the innocent look on Ethan's face after his silly performance. It all hit Liam in a way he hadn't expected. The pure joy of the moment, the way Ethan had so willingly played along and made him laugh until his sides hurt, filled him with a sudden, warm feeling. It wasn't just funny anymore, it was sweet. His eyes lingered on Ethan's slightly flushed cheeks and the way his hair peeked out from under the cap. A quiet, soft sigh escaped Liam. He didn't mean to say out loud, but the word just slipped past his lips, a gentle whisper in the quiet kitchen. "You're just adorable." The word hung in the air between them, much louder than Liam had intended. Ethan froze in his silly pose, his playful grin slowly disappearing. The happy, joking atmosphere suddenly shifted, becoming still and quiet. Ethan's eyes, which had been sparkling with mischief, now held a surprised, almost vulnerable look. The pom-pom on his cap seemed to stop bobbing completely. Liam's own eyes widened as he realized what he'd said. The teasing smile that had been on his face for so long vanished, replaced by a mixture of shock and something else he couldn't quite name. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, as both of them processed the unexpected word. The cheerful sound of laughter was completely gone, leaving only the soft hum of the refrigerator. Ethan stood perfectly still, his half-bow frozen in place. The word adorable bounced around in his head, making his cheeks flush a deeper red than before. It wasn't a word Liam usually used, especially not for him. It was a soft, sweet word, and it felt very different from their usual teasing. His heart gave a little flutter, a nervous but also excited feeling. He slowly straightened up, his eyes meeting Liam's. Liam looked a little flustered too, his easy grin gone, replaced by a thoughtful frown. The kitchen, which moments ago had been filled with booming laughter and silly sounds, was now incredibly quiet. The silence wasn't awkward or bad. It was soft and warm, like a cozy blanket had been draped over them. Ethan found himself unable to look away from Liam's eyes. They held a kindness he hadn't noticed quite so clearly before, a depth that made him feel seen in a new way. "Adorable," Ethan finally managed to whisper, his voice a little shaky. He didn't mean it as a question, more like he was just trying the word out, letting it settle in the space between them. The pom-pom on his cap seemed to hang still, as if even it understood the sudden change in the air. The playful energy that had made them both laugh so hard had faded, leaving behind something more gentle and real. It felt like they had stepped into a different room, one where jokes weren't needed, just quiet understanding. He felt a shyness bloom in his chest, a feeling he hadn't expected to have with Liam, his loud, outgoing roommate. Liam took a deep breath. His face still held a touch of surprise, but a different kind of bravery began to shine in his eyes. He saw the shy wonder in Ethan's gaze and knew he couldn't just leave the word hanging in the quiet air. It had been an accident, yes, but it was also true. Yeah, Liam said, his voice a little softer than usual but firm. Adorable. I meant it. He stepped a little closer to Ethan, not invading his space, but closing the distance between them. I know it's probably weird. We're just roommates and friends. He scratched the back of his neck, a nervous habit. But seeing you in those silly pajamas, being all funny and making me laugh like that, it just hit me. You're more than just my friend, Ethan. He searched for the right words, his eyes holding Ethan's. You're someone I think about a lot, even when we're not together. And you make me really, really happy. He paused, letting his words sink in. And, he added, a small, hopeful smile starting to form on his lips. I think you're adorable. Not just because of the pajamas, though they definitely help. A small, nervous laugh escaped him, but it was quickly swallowed by the quiet intensity of the moment. He waited, his heart thumping in his chest, for Ethan's reaction. It was a big thing to say, a step into something new and unknown, but it felt right. Ethan listened to Liam's words, his heart doing a strange little flip-flop in his chest. A warm, happy feeling spread through him, chasing away the last bit of shyness. He looked at Liam's hopeful face, the nervousness in his eyes, and a soft smile finally bloomed on Ethan's own lips. It wasn't the teasing, playful smile from before, but something gentler, full of a quiet joy. It's not weird, Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper, but firm enough to be heard in the silent kitchen. He took a small step closer to Liam, mirroring Liam's earlier move. His gaze dropped to Liam's hands, then back up to his eyes, a shy blush returning to his cheeks. Because, I kind of feel the same way about you. He watched Liam's eyes widen slightly, a look of pure surprise and happiness washing over his face. The tension that had been hanging in the air seemed to melt away, replaced by a comfortable warmth. Ethan continued, his voice gaining a little more strength. You're always so full of life, Liam, and you make everything brighter, even boring study nights. I really like that about you. He cleared his throat, feeling a little clumsy with his words, but determined to say what was in his heart. More than just as a friend, I mean. He finally met Liam's gaze fully, a silent question in his eyes. He hoped Liam understood, hoped he wasn't just imagining the hopeful spark he saw reflected there. The cheesy crackers were completely forgotten. All that mattered was the soft light in Liam's eyes and the quiet promise of something new. A wide, joyful grin spread across Liam's face, the kind that reached his eyes and made them sparkle. Really, he breathed, his voice filled with happy surprise. He didn't wait for Ethan to answer. He simply reached out, gently taking Ethan's hand. Ethan's fingers were soft and warm in his, and a jolt of something new and exciting passed between them. The kitchen, once just a place for late-night snacks, now felt like a secret, cozy bubble. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound, a gentle backdrop to their quiet moment. They stood there, hands clasped, just looking at each other. There was no need for more words right now. The understanding passed between them in their shared glances, in the gentle squeeze of their hands. It was clear as day. Their friendship, which had been so strong and comfortable, was now stretching and growing into something different, something deeper. It felt right, surprisingly so. There was no fear, no awkwardness, just a sense of calm happiness. It was as if this was always meant to happen, that all their teasing and laughter had been leading them to this very quiet, very special moment. Ethan could feel his heart beating a happy rhythm, a counterpoint to the soft thumping he could feel from Liam's hand in his. The silly sheep pajamas, the late-night snack craving, Liam's unexpected appearance. It all added up to this. A new beginning, a quiet promise of more. The air around them felt soft and sweet, filled with unspoken hopes and a warm, budding connection. They weren't just roommates anymore. There was something more, standing on the edge of a wonderful discovery. Liam's thumb gently stroked the back of Ethan's hand, a silent question passing between them. Ethan squeezed Liam's hand in return, a soft promise. He didn't need to say anything more. The feeling was clear, a comfortable warmth spreading through him. The cheesy crackers, the original reason for his midnight trip, were utterly forgotten, lying untouched in the cupboard. "So," Liam finally whispered, his voice a low, happy rumble. "Does this mean I get to see the sheep pajamas more often?" A playful glint was back in his eyes, but it was softer now, mixed with tenderness. Ethan chuckled, a soft, happy sound. "Maybe," he said, his own eyes sparkling. He paused, then bravely took another small step, closing the little bit of distance left between them. He leaned in just a tiny bit, a shy, hopeful gesture. "Only if you promise to keep laughing." Liam's grin widened, and without a word, he gently squeezed Ethan's hand again. He then leaned in too, his breath warm against Ethan's ear. "Always," he murmured, his voice full of warmth and a promise of more laughter, and something much, much sweeter. It wasn't a big kiss, not yet, but a soft, lingering brush of his cheek against Ethan's, a gentle acknowledgement of the unspoken feelings that now hummed between them. It was a quiet beginning, just a simple touch in a silent kitchen, but it marked the start of their new story. The journey from roommates to something more had just taken its first beautiful step, all thanks to a pair of silly sheep pajamas and a laugh that turned into love.